So White's boots are probably one of the top 3 best American-made, handmade boot companies in the world, in America. And they just came out with their first boot under $300, and it happens to be a mock toe. So let's cut it open and see what's inside of it. So these are the very last boots of this year's Mocktober. We got the finale on Sunday, November 1st, and then Saturday, for Halloween, the Halloween special, I got a wild pair of boots that you guys are gonna like. But for the mock toe finale, I got Trenton and Heath and Strideways with a guest appearance. So that one's gonna be really fun. So look out for that one. And if you haven't subscribed, consider doing it, because I'm trying to get to that 300,000 subscriber mark by the end of the year so that I can do these things, give away some boots to you guys and to some homeless and some store credit. So now let's get back to these boots. So now let's go over the boot information and kind of the backstory of these boots. So these boots just came out this year on September 4th. And immediately everyone was blowing up my comment sections and DMs wanting to get these on the upcoming Mocktober series. And I assumed that I wouldn't be able to do them because all of White's boots are pretty pricey. They're in that $500 to $600 price range. And then I looked at the price tag and they're less than the Red Wing mock toes. So that was really surprising to me, and I'm really interested to see what's inside of these boots, because as far as I know, no one knows exactly what's going on inside of here. No one's seen a complete cross section, and no one really knows every single component of this boot. So I'm really excited to do kind of a first look inside of White's first sub $300 boot and their very first mock toe. So back to the boot information. So the brand is White's. The model is their Perry boot, and it's named after the Perry district in Spokane. The color is distressed, and that's the only color they have right now. The price tag is $269. They weigh 1 pound 13 ounces, and they're made in Spokane, Washington, USA. Now let's go over the information that we can gather about these boots before we cut them in half, starting with the leather. So this is a full grain chrome tanned leather, tanned by the Seidel Tannery here in the United States. And it's a pretty thick leather. It's 2.8 millimeters to 3 millimeters thick, which is thicker than any of the other mock toes that we've cut in half. And the temper of this leather it's not quite as firm as the Red Wings, but not nearly as soft as the Thorogood. So kind of just a fairly medium tempered, fairly malleable leather that still gives you a little bit of structure. Next is the construction. So it's a 360 Goodyear welted boot, just like I think all the rest of them. Except for the Danners. But this is it's a little bit of a storm welt, where the welt goes up just a little bit up the side of the upper to give it a little bit more water protection, a little more dirt protection. But it's not like a full storm welt where it's split and it goes halfway, or it goes like a 1/4 of an inch up the boot. Just a little bit of a storm welt. And then to the construction of the upper. So these boots are built a lot like their regular $500 work boots, where you've got the 4 rows of stitching where the vamp meets the upper. You've got the 3 rows of stitching around the counter. You got the big backstay, and then just the general stitching around everywhere else. And that kind of brings us to the next point, which is the counter cover. So all the other boots that we've cut apart have had an internal counter cover, where the counter and the counter cover sits inside of the upper. But these boots are built more like their work boots and all the other really heavy duty work boots, where the counter is actually on the outside of the upper, and then you've got a piece of leather that covers the counter on the outside. The pros of having an external counter cover and counter is that you don't have that lip inside of your heel that could catch your heel and give you blisters. It's a more comfortable fit, and it's allegedly more durable. The only con I could think of is the same potential issue that I saw in the Thursday and the Carhartt, where your heel is rubbing against that seam over and over and over. It could wear that seam out. But with these boots, you've got the extra stitching from the backstay and the counter cover that even if you did wear through a seam, there's tons of other seams and stitching to hold it together. And all the handmade work boot companies do it this way, at least most of them. So I don't think it's much of an issue. Next to the outsole. So this is a polyurethane based outsole, and it's actually the same outsole that's put on the Danners, but just branded as White's. And I guess I got the Danners wrong, because on the Danners website, it says it's a rubber outsole, but talking to the president of White's, he says it's polyurethane based, and it has a polyurethane feel to it. And what's interesting is this is actually the same, the manufacturer that makes this outsole makes the Thorogood outsoles. And I don't know if it's the exact same compound. It feels a little bit softer. So I found that really interesting that the one company, that one US based company makes the White's, Danners, and Thorogood's outsoles. And then the product description says it's got a shank in here, but I don't know if it's actually if it's built into the outsole like we saw in the Danners, or if it sits on top of the outsole, kind of like what we saw in the Thorogoods. So I guess we'll see when you get it cut in half. Moving to the inside of the boot, so I can feel that there's a leather liner at the vamp, the toe area of the boot, and it kind of has a suede texture to it. and there's no lining up the shaft of the boot. And then to the guts of the boot, so the insole is a full grain leather insole, but I don't know how thick it is because you can't tell from the outside, and no one's cut one in half yet. And there's supposed to be cork in here, but also we don't know how much and where it's located. And other than that, the rest of the inside is kind of a mystery. And now to the sizing of these boots. So on White's website, they recommend going a full size down from your natural shoe size. So if you wear 10.5 like I do in pretty much everything, you get a 9.5 in these boots. Or based off your Brannock device, you go half a size down. So I'm a 10 on the Brannock, and I needed to go to a 9.5 in these. Now to the fit and feel and the overall look of these boots. So because this is a medium temper leather, it's not gonna be nearly as hard to break in as some of the other boots. And it also comes with an Ortholite insert. So instead of just your foot on that leather breaking the leather insole in, you got a little bit of squish to kind of aid with that and ease the break-in process. And these boots they do have a fair amount of room in the toe box, so they're comfortable, you're not squishing your toes. And the overall look of them, I actually really like the look of these boots. They have that look of the handmade, that Pacific Northwest boot look with that external counter cover, the heavy stitching. So I really like the look of these boots. Some people might not as much because they don't look quite as clean as like the Red Wings and some of the other more simple, flat looking boots. But I really like them. So that's pretty much everything. And now it's time to cut them in half after we talk about Magic Spoon, the sponsor of this video. So I really love cereal, but the problem is it's not very healthy for you. And the stuff that is healthy tastes just like cardboard. So when Magic Spoon reached out and claimed to have a really good tasting and healthy cereal, it piqued my interest. So I asked them to send me some to try before I committed to advertising on my channel. And this stuff is super good, and it's really good for you because it has 0 sugar, 11 grams of protein, and 3 net carbs per serving. And it comes in 4 flavors: blueberry, fruity, frosted, and cocoa. I really like the fruity. I think it's the best one. So get a variety pack like I did via the link in my description at magicspoon.com/roseanvil and use the code roseanvil at checkout to get free shipping. And if you don't like it for any reason, they'll refund your money, no questions asked. And they sponsored the last video, and in the comment section, there's a few people who've actually tried this before and they said it's really good cereal and they eat it all the time. So it's kind of cool to be able to do sponsorships that I believe in, that are actually good and that you guys like, because it just makes it easier to do these type of sponsorships. So thanks to Magic Spoon for sponsoring this video, and back to the cutting. Okay, we got it cut in half. Let's see what's inside. Okay, now let's go through the layers and kind of see what's what. And also, I forgot to tell you guys, White's sent me this one boot that had a flaw in it. It looks like the stitching went up above the welt. So I could cut this in half instead of cutting my own pair in half, so I can actually wear these and give an informed review down the road. Because I think for next Mocktober, I want to wear all these mock toes that we reviewed in this Mocktober throughout the next year and kind of keep track of the time and try to wear them as evenly as possible. That's the one thing my channel lacks, is overall experience of feet in the boots. So anyway, back to what's inside of these boots. So starting with the polyurethane based outsole. So this is the exact same outsole as in the Danners. It's got the internal shank, as we see here. So if you like the Danners, you like that outsole, you'll like these as well because it's the exact same. Moving up is the 3.5 millimeter thick rubber midsole. So this is that layer that the welt is sewn to, that when these are resoled, they peel this outsole off and a new one is glued to that midsole. Above that is the cork filling, we can see here. And then above that is the 3.5 millimeter thick vegetable tan full grain leather insole. This was thinner than I expected, and I don't necessarily think it's a bad thing or a good thing. It's just kind of on a scale of easy to break in and long lasting. You know, on the easy to break in side, we've got the fiberboard insoles that break in with a few times of wearing it, versus the hard to break in, long lasting 5 millimeter thick vegetable tan leather insoles in the Red Wings that take forever to break in. Like I've complained about the entire series, like those Red Wings are tough under your foot until you get them broken in. So this 3.5 millimeter insole is, I think, somewhere in the middle, because with it being thinner, it's gonna be a little bit easier to break in, and it's not gonna take 3 weeks to get your footprint in the boot, but it also has some of that longevity associated with the leather insole, so that you might get a few more resoles out of this without needing more of a rebuild. And then to maybe the most interesting part about this boot, and if you watched when I was cutting in half, I couldn't get through the counter, and that's because it's a compressed cardboard counter. I don't really know how to feel about this because I've never seen it before. I've never had a boot that had a pair of these in them, so when I talked to Whites during the preparation of this video, they told me it was a compressed cardboard counter, and that they've used it before in some of their fire boots and they've never had any complaints about it. So based off of what they say, it's a decent counter, but I've never experienced it. So let me know what you guys think, and if you've ever had one of these counters and what your thoughts are on it. And as for the properties of this counter, so it's a really hard counter. It's not nearly as flexible as the reconstituted leather counters like we've seen in some of the other boots. So in the heel itself, you get a little bit more of a hard cupping heel counter. You know, there's definitely a ridge right here of where your heel sits. Some people might like that, some people might hate it. So that's kind of where these long-term wear and reviews come in handy, because after a year of wearing these on and off, we should kind of have an idea of how this heel counter wears in. So I'm really interested to see how this lasts over time. So overall, what do I think of this boot? I'm really impressed with this boot. You know, I saw that price point and I saw the name brand, and I was a little bit worried that it was going to be one of those things kind of like what we saw with Carhartt and Doc Martens, where a company uses a name to sell a subpar product and make huge margins on them. But I think for this price, this is a really impressive boot. And it's almost like they took everything wrong with the Danners, upgraded it and made it better. So if you like Danners boots, you're gonna love these boots, because everything is just fixed on it. You know, it's got the leather insole, it's got the cork, it's got a better leather, it doesn't have that terrible lining in it. So very impressed with these boots. As for things I don't like about this boot, I'm a little unsure about this compressed cardboard counter. I just haven't experienced it, and I searched online for information on this type of counter and I couldn't find anything. So that may be the only thing that I'm a little concerned about. Yeah, I guess that's it. Like the only other thing I could say is like maybe having a leather midsole, but then you're starting to raise the price of the boot, and even the Red Wings didn't have a leather midsole. So for this price point, I'm pretty impressed with this boot. So let me know what you guys think. What are your thoughts on this boot, and prepare for the finale. We've got those guests coming in. I'm really excited for the finale. Anytime I do a finale, I want to bring some guests in, because it gets me excited, and it's really fun working with other YouTubers, and I really like breaking down these boots in a series type format so that we actually have things to compare them to, because we wouldn't know if this boot was any good unless we had other boots to compare it to in similar price points. So thanks for everything you guys do. If you're not subscribed, consider doing it. It helps a lot with the channel, and I appreciate everything you guys do. See ya.